Yeah, no great surprise, and in fact she would have gotten into trouble with the Federal Finance Committee of the FEC if she hadn't, because she'd already put a deposit on some office space in Brooklyn. So she was already spending money as if she was running, so she really had to run. She had a 2-week window and she's just met it.
Look, it's funny that we should start off talking about money, because here's a figure I wanted to run past you, that that her and her supporters and the things known as super PACs, which you can explain to us in a moment, are aiming to raise $2.5 billion. That's with a B for her campaign. That figure can't be right.
It could easily be right. Well over $2 billion was raised in the 2012 campaign, covering the primary and the general election as well. And this is where who is paying for these elections becomes a major issue. And some will say that even Barack Obama, who mobilised a grassroots army of about 5 million mum and dad donors, college kids, all chipping in an average of $20, he also took large amounts of money from Wall Street. Some will say that affected his policies on issues like the stimulus and finance reform as well. So money is a big issue, not just where it comes from, but also what it buys.
Well, it's an extraordinary sum of money, and of course I guess it then predetermines the nature of the campaign and as you indicate, surely the nature of the policies. Do we know, just at this starting point, just what kind of policies Hillary Clinton will be espousing?
Well, it's always difficult to tell in these early stages of a nominating contest because, of course, Hillary Clinton first needs to win enough delegates to become the Democratic Party's nominee. That's the process that begins in January of next year, runs through until June of next year. She doesn't really face any serious opposition at this stage, although her declaring today could well flush one or two other potential candidates out. But at the moment, she's more than 45% in front of her nearest rival. But, of course, the Republicans on the other side are the real opponents, and they're the ones she's going to be facing in November of next year. But as for spelling out policy positions, so far Hillary is really just explaining the reason for running. Why run again? Why run for president at the age of 68 when most Americans are looking forward to retirement, not another 8 years in the Oval Office? So she's trying to create this narrative that, well, it's not about me. It's not about me wanting to be president. It's all about you. It's all about Americans and forming that narrative at this early stage.
Yes, and that narrative includes the signal sound of the phrase the middle class. They want to make this about middle class America. Why is that important? When is the presidency of the United States not about middle class America?
Of course, the great thing about the middle class is that most Americans are in the middle class or struggling to get into the middle class or identify themselves as being in the middle class. So it's a good heartland sort of demographic to go for, Virginia. But of course, the middle class in the United States at the moment, they're feeling as though they've missed out on the recovery, which is continuing there. It has been for a long time a jobless recovery. Americans are still not feeling as though they've fully come back from 2007, 2008 and the Wall Street collapse and the global financial crisis. And so this is all about saying, well, we're going to press the reset button. We're going to start again. Her campaign video, it was clearly calculated to push a lot of buttons demographically, looking at a range of minority groups, women in particular, of course. There's still the potential for this historic candidacy, the first female president of the United States, and of course telling ordinary Americans, not the ones that are poor enough to be on food stamps, not the ones that are rich enough to be the 1% that are doing just fine, thanks, but all the rest that feel as though maybe they haven't yet had their time.
John Barron, is she still a reviled figure in America, according to some?
She has always been very divisive, Virginia, but 8 years ago when she was the front runner for the Democrats' presidential nominee at this time, there was always this lingering concern because nobody had not made up their mind about Hillary Clinton. She had about 40% support in those early days in the primaries. That fell down dramatically as Barack Obama rose, but she had negatives of above 40%. Nobody's ever won with negatives over 40%. Now they're back into the high 20s. She did win a lot of plaudits for her performance, not just at uniting the Democratic Party after losing the nomination, but also as Secretary of State. And this time Hillary Clinton is running on even more achievements, not just 6 years in the Senate and having been a First Lady, but also having been America's chief diplomat. So it could well be that this is her time, but she still has to win that nomination. She still has to win over the voters in places like Iowa and New Hampshire. Iowa, she came disastrously third against Barack Obama and Senator John Edwards in 2008. and she's still there facing a stiff battle, as she is in those other early states. So we could well see Hillary Clinton, once again the front runner, potentially facing another rival.
And is Bill Clinton, the former president, her husband and his legacy, and of course their legacy together, is that an ace in their hand, or is that a potential problem?
Bill Clinton, remarkably, after the Lewinsky scandal, he left office with an approval rating of above 62%, Virginia. Americans knew Bill Clinton. They knew he was a philanderer, but they still liked him. The question is, though, for all Bill Clinton's tremendous likability, Hillary Clinton has not managed to connect with voters in quite the same way. In 2008, some looked at Hillary and Bill campaigning together, and they thought, well, actually, what we really want is Bill Clinton back, not Hillary Clinton. But now Hillary, with her additional credentials, she is just as qualified to be president as anyone in this field, more so given her experience now as Secretary of State as well as the Senate. So very much her own woman this time round. Bill Clinton will hopefully, for her, be an asset rather than overshadowing her, because frankly Hillary Clinton, after being overshadowed by Bill Clinton, then being overshadowed by Barack Obama, is sick of these brilliant men taking a prize which many consider she is intellectually and in a personality sense very well suited for, the presidency of the United States.
And John Barron, just quickly and finally, any sense this early out of who might end up being her running mate should she get the nomination?
Very hard to say, and it could be that the field that assembles around her now, including the likes of Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, are effectively running for Vice President. But the Democrats need a plan B. They need a standby option. So we may still see somebody like Joe Biden put his hat in the ring as sort of a safety option, even though he said he won't run against Hillary Clinton. So the running mate, a ticket balancer. Hillary's from New York by way of Arkansas. Maybe they'll come from the South. Maybe it could be somebody from a Hispanic or Latino background like Julian Castro, perhaps, who's Secretary of HUD, former mayor of Houston, Texas. So there's plenty of time for that speculation as well, but Hillary's got to get the nomination first.